Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 116. How can men compete with cameras? Where we're going to be talking about a bit about this. Well, I don't know. It's something that's been on my mind a lot lately. I had a conversation with Lindsay about solipsism and narcissism, and some people, they say, oh, this is, it's social media or it's or whatever, right? There's just a lot of chitter chatter around the topic, but I kind of want to just put my finger on it because I'll be the first to do misogynist stuff. If anybody, I will take the slings and arrows, and only as a man can I actually demonstrate that. So I have a suspicion that we live in a time,
patriarchy?
No. We live in a time.
Society?
Well, you know what? I didn't want to say society, so I just said time. We are living in a time where things are so good, even with all of this sort of existential thundercloud stuff over our heads. So many people that live in this part of the world, in the West, have it so good that they're just finding things to be upset about. And most of those people are women. And I'm going to explain what I see, and you guys can determine whether or not I'm on the mark or whatever. And I know that Allison has talked about this too. So we're going to be looking at a couple of different things, a couple of websites. We're going to be talking about a meme that's going around, and there's actually some academic work that's been done on this. There is this phenomenon called the Tocqueville Paradox, which is exactly what I described. Like, the better you have it, the more things you find to complain about. And I think it contributes to essentially the existence of women like Manifestel and the people who follow her and adore her. So anyway, we'll get into that when the show starts. But before we do that, I'm going to hand this off to Allison so she can tell us about the things that we have to talk about. So, Allison, you're not, I can't hear you. Why aren't you?
Because I am muted.
Oh my God. Okay.
All right. So once again, we are doing our monthly fundraiser. It's at feedthebadger.com/support. We have $325 left to the month. And I want to do a big thank you to Craig C for putting in $25. Thank you, Craig C. And if you would like to make sure that we can bring you this content, please do go to feedthebadger.com/support. Just a bit of an announcement. We are going to be attempting a meetup in Calgary.
The first time since
5 years. Yeah,
in 5 years. It's been 5 years. Yeah.
The Koofalope, galloped into our world, into all of our respective lives. So it's been about 5 years, and we're going to attempt to have another meetup in Calgary, of all places, on the 28th of September. So that's coming up. Mark that down on your calendars. And so after we finish the monthly fundraiser, we'll roll it over into helping to fund the meetup. So once again, that's the 28th of September. I'm thinking about 12 o'clock. If you guys remember, if any of you were way back then, this is the deep lore, and you remember when we went to the Calgary Expo and I was evicted for saying that I think we should consider men and women when we think about social ills. I was evicted by essentially a bunch of mean girl feminists. We had a meetup in a park beside the expo, which they subsequently swatted. But that park was called the Reader Rock Garden Park. Do you remember that park, Brian? We had a cheese platter and
there were some people. Actually, Lindsay showed. Well, that's when I met her, and she showed up there with like some kind of. I think it was a vegetable platter, but it might have been a meat and cheese. There was a meat cheese platter, but there was also vegetables.
Mm-hmm. So we had a bit of a spread, yeah. And then we, we got swatted because.
Yeah.
And the cop came up.
The expo called the police on us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, they had two SWAT vans. Did you know that?
I don't remember that. I remember the men in uniform.
Yeah. Very polite, came up to us and said, I think you guys are fine. You seem like good people. I'll carry on with your picnic. So yeah, that is the place, the Reader Rock Garden. Thinking about 12 on the 28th of September. And what will happen is we might mill around the Reader Rock Garden. Maybe we'll bring some cheese spreads, not like spreadable cheese, but like spreads of cheese. But we could bring spreadable cheese.
No, I think that would make a mess. But
no,
platters of various deli meats and cheeses, along with vegetables and fruits for those of you who don't partake of the animal products, will probably be there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll just mill around the Reader Rock Garden, and then across the road is the Roxbury Off-Leash Dog Park. So maybe we'll mosey on over there later in the afternoon. It'll be very informal, although I'll do maybe we'll have like a little round table and discuss things of a men's rightsy nature in Reader Rock Garden, and I'll record that and make it available to the supporters of that fundraiser. So anyway, let's get this one done. feedthebadger.com/support, just $325 to go, and then we can start chipping away at the cost of the meetup in Calgary, September 28th. And I just want to apologize once again for the late hour. Oh wait, before I continue, if you want to send us a message at any time, go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip, and we will read it out, because that's the very best way for you to send us a comment and the very best way for you to tip us. And as I was saying, we're a little late. I guess not too late for us. I mean, it was pretty good. We're close to time.
Well, I moved it up an hour. Well, did I move it up an hour? I moved it up an hour. But because it was originally going to be 5 o'clock.
Yeah, but then we started to have a discussion of what exactly the topic is. Incidentally, I did my graduate artist thesis on this topic.
Yeah, so maybe we can get into the Wayback
Machine.
Machine.
It's like a blast from a class for me.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
In 2005, I was like, I actually think that cameras are going to replace men as the other for women. Because they're just so perfect. They idolize so perfectly. But that beat is me. I'll go back to why we were a bit late. Yeah, somebody just walked in off the street and asked us if we had pizza.
How dare.
It was very bizarre.
You should have said yes.
I should have said yes.
It's do it yourself.
Him to the dungeon,
and then give him give him flour and milk and eggs and butter. You just got to make it yourself. But yes, we will. He wasn't asking us. He was in and demanding the pizza. It's like, where's the pizza? I'm like, what? Not really the place you get pizza in town. Do you guys have pizza in Kelvington?
Yeah, we have. It's across the street. It's called Jan's Pizza. So yeah, you can get pizza in Kelvington, and Chinese food and donuts. The donuts are pretty good. So
that's neither here nor there.
We should probably get into the.
Can't do that. Okay, so let us get into the topic. So again, we're going to be talking about solipsism, but this is going to have to come out in stages so that you guys can follow my logic and tell me if I'm crazy or if I hate women or what. So, okay. So we got this. There's this meme that goes around. It's called the POV meme, where you essentially, you show something from your point of view, and then it shows what it looks like. But women are not doing this meme correctly. And I think that it's high treason to not do a meme correctly, to get a meme wrong. And because we want to prevent women from ending up getting, taken to the guillotine. So we're going to try to explain to them how this meme works for their own protection. So the women don't understand POV is a controversial internet axiom suggesting that women can't comprehend the meaning of the phrase POV, which is short for point of view. So it's essentially the memes are from the perspective of the person showing the meme. You see? Mm-hmm. So because of that, if you show yourself in the image, you're doing it from the third person, right? So. Yep. Yeah, so due to a trend of TikToks, photos, and other short-form videos that women can claim are from their POV, although they film themselves in the video in the third person. Of note, there are widespread examples in which people of all genders misuse the term in this way. Now, of course, knowyourmeme.com, they're basically running cover. But the truth is, it is a problem in particular with young women because they want to participate in the memery, but they also really want to be in the image. They want their picture in there. They want their face in there, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So here's an example. Ashley St. Clair on Twitter made this meme video, and she put herself in the video. So let me, I don't know if it has audio.
The point of view is apparently Ron DeSantis getting ready to leave the house.
Yeah.
So
POV, you're Ron DeSantis getting ready to leave the house.
It's a bit of body shaming here, but let's see.
Well, let's see. I don't know what it looks like. So there's the video. Let me just put it on the screen for you guys.
Okay.
Oh, she's making fun of the platform shoes that he wears to like increase his height. Yeah,
he's short, right? Because that's so funny. Short men. Ha ha ha.
And this is Ashley St. Clair herself not getting it because essentially she is making herself the star of the video. That's the thing, right? These videos, the POV meme, you're not the star. It's not about you. One of the earliest known posts attempted to explain why women's inability to understand the term POV was posted by Twitter user SchizoFreak on May 7, 2022, who opined the following. And let me just turn the cameras on here. What did he say here? Social media shifted the POV women view life through. It's impossible for them to return to first-person view now. They've become permanent third-person viewers. Everything is done for an audience. They're all starring in their own little dramas, end quote. The tweet gained over 130 retweets and 1,300 likes in 2 years.
It's not really that great.
No, it's not. But I mean, I guess like tweets will get buried over time. So to say that it's across 2 years is kind of like slightly unforgiving because like, I have tweets that have gotten 100,000 impressions, but they're not getting as many now because I haven't that was like, months ago. Right. So yeah, it's a little bit weird to be like across this period of time because they disappear. Okay. So let's see some other things people have said here. Here's one from Zero HP Lovecraft. It's hilarious and true that women think POV means the camera is looking at them. The only POV that is coherent to either sex is the male POV, the one that looks at women. Women know they are objects. They know it in their bones. So, and there's a series of other videos as an example. But this is like the thing that's kind of interesting about it is that there is something to this statement. So I'm going to read it again, okay? And you let me know what you think, Allison. It's hilarious. So the POV thing is obviously supposed to be first person. You're supposed to be showing something that you're looking at and telling people that, something related to what it is you're looking at from your perspective, because it's you that's looking at the thing. That's you that's perceiving. But for whatever reason, women are not able to do it. They have to put themselves in the image. You ever see the meme that says like when men want to show you something and it's like a picture and it just says object. And then next to it, it says when women want to show you something and it's the same object, but the woman's face is like halfway in the image because she has to get her selfie in. Yeah. So it's that. But okay, so I'll just read this again and then you tell me what you think. It's hilarious and true. It's hilarious and true that women think POV means the camera is looking at them. The only point of view, POV, that is coherent to either sex, so to both men and women, is the male perspective, the one that looks at women. Women know they are objects. They know it in their bones.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is like I said, I honest to God did a thesis on this in art school, that the natural counterpart for modern women is the camera, not men. And I didn't mean that as like a positive thing. And I think I did make it a little bit more witty and tried to hide my power level, but that was the ultimate statement I was making. And that was in like 2006, before the rise of cameras everywhere and women basically just constructing these little dramas with themselves at the center of them. And yeah, it's I know everybody doesn't want to talk about it because nobody wants to criticize women or be seen as criticizing women, but it can't be that good for you. Like this behavior can't be that good for you. And it's indicative that women are actually undernourished when it comes to developing a sense of self through their actions. So that's like first person shooters, all action, right?
Yeah.
There's no character. It's all action. That's the thing. First person is all about your action, not necessarily what happens to you, but how you act. Whereas when you stand outside yourself and objectify yourself, it's all about what happens to you, what things are the external circumstances that are occurring to you, right? So it's like a completely different shift in mentality, and I think it reflects. I mean, honestly, people would say, "Oh, it's criticizing women." Sure, but if you don't criticize women, they don't develop that sense of self, that first person sense of self. I guess we can call it a first person sense of self. They remain locked in a third person sense of self. And the biggest problem with that is you only got a little bit of time before the views start drying up. Like you're not going to, when you're in your 40s and 50s, you're not going to be you're not going to be in your little goldfish bowl anymore because people aren't going to be watching you. At that point in time, they're going to be like, well, what have you done with your life, right? How much first person point of view have you engaged in your life?
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
It's funny because if you write or if you draw, there's a lot of that just takes place in pure solitude, right? Nobody's looking at you, and it's not about you, it's about what you're constructing. And it just strikes me that creation requires a lot of being able to sit in the first person, so to speak, and just be by yourself, not being watched. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. And so when it started getting around this sort of, I guess this conversation that women don't seem to get what POV means because they have to put themselves in the picture. And a lot of times they'll just make themselves the subject of the picture, even though they're talking about something that they're looking at. But you're looking at them looking at this thing. Like say there was one, it was like POV are on the worst date ever. And a woman put this video up, and the camera was on her and she was rolling her eyes, and her date was like talking about like finance or the economy or something that she wasn't interested in. And that the people thought because it was a POV video, they mistook what she was trying to say, which was that her boyfriend, or not her boyfriend, but her date was the worst date ever because he was boring her. But because the camera was on her and she was rolling her eyes, people thought that she was saying she was the worst date ever because that's the POV, right? The guy's talking at her. And so this sort of, some women got upset. And they felt like, well, here's an opportunity for us to dig on men and blame men for women not understanding the POV or something. And so we got this tweet from Alex.
Just before we continue, do women think they can live their entire life with no criticism? This is the big thing. Like, the big thing is that you cannot criticize women at all, right? Not even in a way that might be beneficial at the end of the day. And this is why they don't achieve anything. Ladies, that's 100% why you don't achieve. It's because you don't accept criticism.
Well, it's because we can't call you losers when you don't achieve.
Yeah. Well, and also women cannot one of the best things that I ever learned is not to associate being a woman with being a victim. I don't like criticism. I don't think anybody likes criticism, but at least it hasn't become an existential horror for me. Because criticism means that you are the primary actor, which is absolutely in contradiction, in opposition with being a victim. So once you identify as a victim, you can't be blamed for anything. So I guess that feels really good. You can't be criticized for anything. So I guess that feels really good. But you can never improve anything either. All right.
Yeah. So Alex Koshuta made a tweet where she, and this is like a blue check mark, not that it means anything in 2024. She says women don't understand POV because they don't watch as much porn or play first person shooters. It's not an IQ test. They just don't get to see it in the categories bar every day.
You live first person, Alex. Like, we don't see it. We're not exposed to it. It's the Gamergate people have prevented us from understanding the basic experience of being a human. What am I doing right now? I'm not the camera looking at me. I am me looking at the camera, Alex. Like, what the hell? You know, does she realize? She stand there and she says, "Oh, hey, these are my hands. Look at that. It looks like a first person viewpoint." You know what I mean? Like,
what if women did see in the third person and you're the one that's different?
oh.
Like, what if women do, like, there's like an invisible eye that floats, that's always looking at them, and that's actually how they see the world? What if that's what it is? I don't know. But this is basically what she's doing. Is she's, yeah, no, I know that's mind bending, but this is what the women like this typically fall on, is like, well, let's just shame men by saying porn and video games. Like, sorry, ladies, but you guys are way more perverse than men are. And I know it's going to seem strange, but I seen what the most popular podcast with women is on Spotify, and the most popular podcast with men is on Spotify. And one of these things is extremely sexualized, and one of them is a broad range of topics. No, I think the number one male podcast is either these things they never stay number one forever, but it's basically moving between the Joe Rogan podcast and the Tucker Carlson podcast, and the Tucker overtook Joe Rogan for a while, so it's right around there. And the female one is this one I sent you the link for. It was called Call Her Daddy, and it's basically just like, here's a woman that travels and fucks random dudes, and she like does podcasts about it. But men are the perverts, right? I mean, like, it's okay that we're all fallen creatures. We all have like our struggles, but let's not pretend like women are that much more puritanical than men. So,
well, they're more puritanical, but not more pure. No,
yeah.
Let me just. Well, I mean, this all derives from basically judging people around their treatment of women and not their treatment of men. But I'm still astounded by that first one. Like, we have no experience of first person. Your life is first person. Like, what the
is that how little agency we're giving to women? Like, they don't even see themselves out of their own eyes. They don't see their world.
How do you, like, I'm guessing that she's trying to deflect onto men morally in order to protect some kind of ego thing with women as a group. And that's the other thing. It really drives me nuts, the women as a group thing. But really, Alex, did you not notice your life is in first person? Like, you don't have to play first person shooters and watch porn, which incidentally, is there a hell of a lot of porn in first person? Like,
yeah, I'm sure it's a genre. Yeah, I think it's a genre.
But like, is it like,
well, I mean, there's, I don't know. I don't keep up with the times, but there used to be, well, there was a category called POV. It's just where the camera was.
Yeah,
so,
but my point is that most porn is also third person, as far as I can tell. Maybe
most
I'm
of
totally
it probably, maybe,
totally
yeah. I mean,
but
I haven't looked in a while.
You don't, like, Alex, your life is in first person. You don't need to play first person shooters to experience what first person perspective is. You should have, that should be the first thing you understand about perspective is I. And the fact that your defense of women makes me even more embarrassed to be a woman. Please stop. Okay? Good Lord. Like that even just proves the point. Do you see that? I mean, and of course, know your meme is caping for women, but her response more illustrates the point that they're making than anything else, anything they have said. You see what I'm saying? So, Alex, you live your whole life first person. You should be intimately familiar with it. You should not need to see it in porn and games to know what first person is. Okay.
So there was a response, and it was a try. I guess it was from @verymoisturized, which is a pretty awesome name for Twitter, and in disagreement with Alex Kashuda, who claimed that, oh well, we don't watch porn or play video games. So Very Moisturized said, and you guys tell me what you guys think. Respectfully, this is not why women don't understand POV. They don't understand POV for the same reason they struggle with categorical judgments or abstract reasoning. It's very difficult for them to conceive of objects outside of a solipsistic frame. The fact that male-oriented entertainment has POV as a category is more a testament to the fact that they find this a more relatable way of looking at the world as a subject, not an object.
Conceive of, just let me look at that. I'm going to struggle with categorical judgments or abstract reasoning. It's very difficult for them to conceive of objects outside of solipsistic frame. I'm actually starting to wonder about that from having argued with a lot of women. Like their reasoning is inherently seems to be more about moral judgment, like the dominance through affecting immorality in your opponent, or rudeness in your opponent, or disgustingness in your opponent. Have you know? And it's I mean, maybe it's just solipsistic arguers in general, but I've gotten to the point. I used to be like, well, I am going to analyze this logically. What is it that makes me an incel, madam? And then I realized that's just her conceding the argument, that the argument has gone past her capacity to reason, and now she's resorting to shaming in order to silence or affect dominance. I don't know. It's difficult for them to conceive of objects outside of a solipsistic frame. I would have to sort of understand like a concrete example of that. Is that like a lack of object permanence?
No, I think that it's maybe there'd be another word that we don't have or we don't know
that's not connected to them, essentially. Or
essentially it's solipsism. I hope I'm saying that right. Solipsism is when you basically only see things in terms of like how it relates to you and what it means for you. And maybe in a way this is like an evolved characteristic that was useful to women, you know, but now that we live in the safest, most prosperous, most abundant time in human history, even with, like I said, this sort of dark cloud that hangs over everything, these women who are divorced from that dark cloud, they don't know it's there, right? They're still carrying forward that idea that their experience is like they only see what they like themselves in everything. Like, and they see, maybe even this is why there is like this concept of a sisterhood. Maybe they also only see themselves in other women. And so when they stick up for women, they're really just sticking up for themselves through them. And
it's not even, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, continue.
No, I was just going to say, I'm not saying that this is inherently bad. I just think that there is a part of it that can obviously get out of control. And I think that it's only going to be made worse because of how safe women are. And that's kind of why I wanted to like what I'm bringing these other things together for is that now I've been saying this for a while. I think that modern Western women have it so good. They have it so good, but they're so divorced from what it would be like if they lost it, that they are complaining about the smallest things. And their view on the world is so distorted. It's by this prism of the
Magnifying
patriarchy,
glass.
yeah, it's like, exactly. So that they're like looking at the smallest things, or even things that aren't bad, but there's another woman who they think has more than they want it, because they don't realize like that we're potentially on the brink of World War III, which could mean nuclear holocaust, because they're wondering about the new phone. They're wondering about the new handbag. They're wondering about, like, if the boyfriend they're seeing can take them to any place other than Cheesecake Factory. And part of the reason for that is because our society has done everything it can to protect women from discomfort, that we have damaged their brains in a way. I mean, I'm not going to personally take the blame for this, but you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
if it's like people
Okay.
used to, yeah, go ahead, jump in.
Everything on this page was not horrifying until we got to Alex Kashuta saying, women don't understand point of view because they don't watch as much porn or play first-person shooters. It's not an IQ test. They just don't get to see it in the categories bar every day. She thinks this is a zinger, but you live first-person point of view, Alex. Are you unaware of that? Is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
That is like, I don't even know if we need to have go any further. Like, that is just, Alex, in defending women, you have essentially underlined the criticism, and you said, yes, this is utterly valid. I mean, because they don't even understand that they live in first person. Alex, or at least Alex, doesn't even understand that they live in first person. And it's astounding. I don't know who put together this Know Your Meme page, but did you think that was a defense?
Well, they are going to cape for women, but I guess that's like the best, like, I don't know, zinger they got, that the women got. You're a gooner. You're addicted to porn. You play a lot of video games in your mom's basement. Gotcha. Meanwhile,
I may
again,
not have the ability. I may not have the ability to see the world in terms of first person, but you're an incel. And I can judge you based on my benefit and my respect for you. It's like, okay, but you still fail. You're still presenting something that is on its surface incredibly stupid and absolutely a devastating critique of yourself. You have written a devastating critique of your own position, Alex. God save us all.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's keep going then.
All right. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I had this, when I learned about the POV meme and how women weren't, they didn't get it. And I think there is something about like men being able to kind of separate themselves from something, so that they can look at it like objectively, no pun intended, without it, making it about themselves, right? This is not to say that there are not solipsistic men or narcissistic men. Obviously there are. But in most cases, when men are looking at a thing, they're looking at the thing. They're not looking at themselves with the thing. They're not thinking of themselves as part of that. They're just looking at it in the abstract sense, and they're, sort of like emboldening that. So when they do the POV, then it makes more sense, because I think that it's just got like a masculine framework to it. Maybe that's the issue. But this got me thinking about something else. There is this concept called the Tocqueville Paradox. Oops, I got to share this tab to show you. And we have a paper on this. This is a paper. When does reform provoke rebellion? So we developed a model of reform and rebellion to explore Alexis de Tocqueville's conjecture that reform provokes political unrest. Our theory emphasizes that reform often must be implemented by local actors with a stake in the status quo. In this setting, we promise of reform represents an implicit contract against which subsequent implementation is measured. Okay, so I'm not going to read all that, but what is the Tocqueville Paradox? The concept is that so you're in a civilization, okay, and the civilization has all kinds of problems. We have like systems that we need to put into place so that we can make life easier, so that we can continue to grow the population in a safe environment that has some degree of like resources that we can continue, right? So you're a tribe, they find a place, the earth is good, they start tilling the soil, they start building homes, and they start to settle in, and then they do other things. They bring in the cats to kill the rats, they make the space secure, they put a wall around their village, whatever. And the more of that we get, the more safe and secure and abundant and resource plentiful and population is growing, and and whatever, the more of that we get. The paradox is, over time, as people come in, are essentially growing up in the society, and they're separated from how we got here, they are more likely to complain and be dissatisfied with smaller and smaller things. And one of the reasons is because well, for starters, there is no gratitude, because they don't know what it took to build this, right? Mm-hmm. So inevitably they're going to want to rebel against the system for whatever reason. Some people might say that they desire hardship, they want things to be bad so that they have something to complain about or whatever. But it is paradoxical, because it's probably happened in the past. It's probably happened in cycles. So you want to say anything about that?
No, I'm just here for it. I think that I'm actually really curious how the Tocqueville Paradox, if I have said that correctly, connects to female solipsism, but not just female solipsism, because I can see that it would connect in terms of the prosperity necessary to allow women to constantly see themselves in the third person, but and see themselves as an act, on a little performance and a one woman play, as opposed to somebody who has to get the pigs mucked and the cows milked and make sure that the beets get pickled so people don't get scurvy in the middle of winter, that kind of thing. I can see that. What I am a little bit curious about is how this all relates to rebellion. And again, I will remind you that even if you cannot see me, I can hear you. I
can see you. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. So if you get up and walk away,
wander off to go stretch, because migraine, then I can still hear you. Yeah, I know. I'm a gimp. I'm gimpy, right, guys.
No, it's all right. I got another study similar, and it has a slightly different setup. So I'm going to read that out right now. So this is another study, the Tocqueville Paradox, a game theoretic perspective. In this study, we delve into the loosening collapse phenomenon within the framework of Tocqueville's paradox, utilizing the methodological lens of game theory. Traditionally, Tocqueville's paradox posits that revolutions and social unrest are not necessarily most likely to occur in the most oppressive and least free environments. Rather, they are more likely to emerge after a certain degree of political and social relaxation has taken place. This observation raises an evident question. Why does social instability and unrest tend to occur more easily in environments where the political system has become relatively relaxed and social pressures have been alleviated? We seek to explain this phenomenon through the lens of dynamic game interactions between rulers and the masses. So let me turn these back on real quick. So that's kind of what got my attention, because we've been responding to Manifestel videos and other feminist videos, and these are all women that are pretty well off. You can tell by the quality of the videos, by their physical appearance. They're healthy, they have money for makeup, they have money for clothes, they're doing well, but they're complaining about patriarchy and capitalism and all these things that supposedly are so awful. And I think it's because, again, when you are so divorced, and that's kind of the POV stuff, I'm trying to there is a link in my gut says there's a link.
There's an intuition here. You're following a trail of intuition.
My intuition says that. And maybe you guys can help me out in the chat, because I see a link there, but I can't quite explain it. Yeah, but I'm just going with my gut. This is what I do. So I'm from the streets, and the streets tells me there's a link here. So anyway, so they're doing really well, but they're still complaining. And they are, feminism is a revolutionary movement, whether they tell you this or not. I mean, they basically run everything, but they're never finished because it's all about like continuing the revolution, and they're okay with burning everything down. They're okay with burning it all to the ground to start over because they have this feeling that, like the phoenix, they're going to rise from the ashes, and it's all very romantic and stuff. But I feel like this is only more likely to occur in just how they said it. When where everything is really good, why does the social instability and unrest tend to occur more easily in environments where the political system has become relatively relaxed and social pressures have been alleviated? Like, women are more liberated now than they ever have been, and yet they're more miserable. So just something that I wanted to bring up because I think it's and here's I want to show you one other thing, and then we can like discuss if you like.
Good.
So
All right.
I got this video and I'm going to share it. Share this tab. Here we go. And this is just a clip from something called the MOA podcast or the MOA podcast. And basically, like, guys asking, there's a guy, he's asking women on the street how much money a man has to make to date her. Okay. And only someone who is as removed from reality as these women could make these claims. And this is kind of what I'm getting at. So let's play this.
What would you want his income to be? I feel like this is gonna sound bad. I feel like 300,000.
I would have to say 127, probably 150 to $250,000 a year.
What?
$100,000? Is that bad?
150, maybe to 250,000 a year would be comfortable.
What kind of
sure.
question is this?
I was just
All right. I'm going to play through it's not long. It's like a little bit longer, like maybe 30 seconds. So we'll finish it off.
I was having this conversation with my friend, and she was like, you have to manifest a husband, girl. Ideally,
You manifest
my
it. Got it.
husband needs to be making like 650,000.
So you said you want 500K, but what do you think the median income is for a 30-year-old?
60K, 70K.
It is $45,000.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah,
I think it's 250,000.
What?
it's 52,000.
What? No, it's not. Damn, America.
All right.
What the hell?
So, see, this is what I'm getting at, okay?
Do they just not understand numbers?
Well, it is girl math, but more than that, why I think, and I'm being charitable. I'm being really charitable, okay? I think women literally are so divorced from how much shit costs, they can just make numbers up that sound good. And it's based on probably like some celebrity somewhere was saying something about money, or they just see like, because they're always looking at what people who are doing better than them have. And because again, I think because this is, I mean, could it be that this is an aspect or a product of solipsism? Could it be that they're just like, well, I know like this amount of money that I made up exists in the world, so I should have it. I mean, I don't know what else it could be. You know, like seriously, $45,000 a year, 45,000. That sounds great. I would be great. Like Lindsay wouldn't work. We'd have a small place. I'd be super happy. I just, but these women are like 150,000 sounds about right. Like it's normal. And it's not just because they don't know math. I think it's because they have they're so protected from the realities of the world that they don't know. Like, I mean, like they're like babes in the wild. But anyway, what do you think?
I think that's insane. I think that ultimately, I think you might be onto something with the whole.
I mean, one of them is like you got to manifest a husband. How do you manifest a husband? What is that?
All right, and if 30 million women are trying to manifest men who are part of the proportion of men only is like 1% of all men, so it's only like maybe 3,000 men. Doesn't matter how hard you manifest, that 3,000 men isn't going to be cloned. And as soon as I don't know, if we lived in a world of infinite, like, and that the problem is here. Okay. The problem is the benefit itself. It is the fact that they are getting comfortable, and though it's like constant hedonic adaptation. They're always getting comfortable with what they have, so they want more. And feminism, to speak to what you were talking about with the paradox, has always invited women to believe that they deserve more and that men are keeping it from them. So it is the essence of a continuously, like a huge sense of resentment towards society and men, because you're not getting everything that you want. So instead of telling women, eventually you have to settle, there are limitations. You probably can't all manifest that character from 50 Shades of Grey, a billionaire who's interested in
Christian Grey.
That billionaire who's interested in the human equivalent of porridge, just the blandest.
The reason why the thing about Christian Grey is not just that he's got everything women want, but it's also, from what I heard about people who've read the book, women who have read the book, let's be real, it's also that he is in need of a woman's
love.
Yeah, like it's like he's like a broken baby bird, and so he needs to be nursed back to health by a woman. So the woman brings nothing but her empathy, and the man has everything else, essentially.
So a woman brings nothing but her emotional labor, but how dare he ask for emotional labor. Okay, fair enough.
Emotional labor.
My overall point is, I think you got an idea there that feminism essentially is constructing the conditions for constant unhappiness, because the revolution that it proposes will never materialize. You cannot make someone happy if they're always looking for reasons to be unhappy. And feminism gives women constant reasons to be unhappy and to believe that they're owed more. Not just that they're owed more, like you can gotta go out there and seize the American dream and go and do hard work or have a great idea. Not ambitious. It's that they are owed more by others, first of all, not that they can go out there and seize it for themselves, but also that if they don't get more, it is because they have been transgressed against, that men have failed, and that they are less morally because they haven't provided this new more for women. And it's never ending. Like, there always is hedonic adaptation. Once you get used to 100,000, you need to get 250,000. Once you get used to 250,000, you need 1 million, right? It's always hedonic adaptation. So they're always striving for more. They're never content with what they do have. They never have gratitude for what they do have. And it's like a perpetual cycle of resentment. And what's interesting is I was watching this video that sort of went through the genesis of some current modern ideologies and previous philosophers. Now, I don't necessarily buy into all of the connections completely. I'd have to think about or look into it myself. But there was one thing that was really interesting, was this idea of struggle. I think it was Herodotus. Hercules. I'm going to screw this name up. But anyway, it was ancient Greek philosopher. Herculetus, I think.
Okay.
Herculetus.
I don't know. I know Hercules. Yeah. I know that's not who you're talking about, though.
Heraclitus, who believed that the origin of, everything is in suffering or in struggle. Let me see if I can.
I was thinking about that because remember, and this is another reason why I brought this up. We went through the ballerina what was it, the ballerina ranch or whatever it was, thing where a woman who was, like a ballet dancer, the ballet farm, I think that's what it was, a ballet farm. A woman who was a ballet dancer stopped pursuing her career as a ballet dancer, married a man, and they moved. They are in Utah with like a bunch of kids and a farm, and they appear to be very happy. And she's an influencer. She puts videos up, and Manifestel is like trying to find ways to essentially dog on her with a bunch of other women online, because it seems to me that women are really busy looking at what other women are doing online, and that's kind of like, like I've said, and you know what? It's funny. So I used to say all the time that social media is Call of Duty for women. Still, I stand by that. It's obvious to me. And the other day, I was watching somebody else, and they said the same thing. And I was like, are you watching our show and you heard that and now you're using it? But whatever. I'm glad that people are picking up on this. Social media is the domain of women. It is how they fight with each other. It's how they, compete. It's how they compete for attention. It's how they compete with men, or for men rather. That's what it is. Like, everybody engages in it to some degree, with very few exceptions. Like, I will even say, even when Pearl Davis says, like, she posts a picture of a woman and she criticizes how she's dressed, she's engaging in the same thing. She is playing Call of Duty. That's the whole of social media is essentially the lobby. But when boys are playing COD and they're talking shit to each other, they don't take it personal. When everything is said and done, they go back to whatever. But when women do it, they engage in reputation destruction, and they do it on levels that, I couldn't even dream. Like, they'll find a photo of a girl and they'll zoom in close and they'll look for every imperfection and they'll make them focus on it. Like, what was her name? E-Girl Belle Delphine talked about how, she got way more abuse from women than men.
Yep, same experience too.
Men were essentially just, paying for her nudes, or maybe they would say something like nice ass, or open Bob or whatever. But women would like,
show Bob's
they would talk about how her face is asymmetrical, and they'll like prove it with like graphs and fucking
suddenly their ability to do math increases exponentially when they can calculate the square, the cubic inch of your ass.
Or the story that I just reported on the news show, where women were using ChatGPT to determine whether or not men were lying about their height. So, and this was like shared around like it was a good thing. Like, we're not shallow. We're just using artificial intelligence to like scan photos to find out how tall men actually are. And we'll make our decision about going on a date with them based on that, I guess. So
and here's the thing.
Did you find the thing you were looking for, or no?
Well, no, it's basically the philosophy that meaning comes through struggle. So that if you don't have a struggle, there's no meaning. And I think that, I'm like, yeah, that's very masculine. I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just this idea that a human being becomes themselves through the process of struggling with the external world. That's very masculine. It's like the essence of, I think, how men view themselves and the world, is that you go out into the world presents obstacles to your goals, you overcome them. This is a hero's journey, of course. And this is what makes writing interesting, even to women, which is why you'll find most male authors have half of their audience is women, because this is interesting to women as well as men. But you go out, you strive over these obstacles, and through that process, yourself. So struggle creates meaning, and it creates an understanding of yourself as a person. First person perspective. That's first person. I know that is first person philosophy, first person point of view philosophy. That you go out in the world, you struggle, you strive, and you learn yourself through your striving, right? That is, so that was what I was talking about in terms of the philosophy. And it's just sort of like the exact opposite of this idea of always trying to achieve perfect utopia.
Yeah.
like this perfect utopian situation where there is no want, there is no pain, there is no fear, and yet also there is no boredom, because every woman has their own, serial killer.
Yeah.
who they tamed into being a complete simp,
You're
So nothing is boring and everything is provided for. Something wrong?
yeah, your camera is freezing up. Your internet's dropping a little bit.
Oh,
So
me
maybe
just see if I
you
can
have too
reduce
many maybe you have too many tabs
Here we go.
open. All right. I may have to Yeah, your camera's frozen in the Discord, but let me try to refresh it real quick.
I mean, in Video Ninja?
No, in Video Ninja,
Yeah,
Video Ninja it's fine, but the Discord display is a little off.
You mean OBS?
Or I'm sorry,
display, right?
OBS. That's what I mean. OBS.
Well, I just reduced the.
I just refreshed you. Hold on.
Yeah. So hopefully that fixes it.
All right. Yeah, that's it fixed it. All right. So before we continue, I wanted to read a super chow we got while it's up. So thanks for the super chow. Anonymous gave us $10 and said, or 15. I'm sorry, $15. My bad. I nominate Brian and his wife to be the next anti-feminist power couple like Andrew and Rachel Wilson. Start debating normies and feminists and drop facts about patriarchy and female accountability. I'm also eager to see Brian or Allison on a podcast other than HBR to spread the anti-feminism. You mean like as a guest on another show? I mean, if we ever get invited, I'd be happy to do it. I know that one of the, I don't know if it's totally relevant, but I did appear, or I'm sorry, I had a guest on. You probably saw it. I hope you did. If you haven't, you should check it out. His name is Arvis, and he is a military veteran, although he doesn't have veteran status because he was falsely accused of sexual crimes, and it caused him to be dishonorably discharged. And when you're dishonorably discharged, you don't get to be called a veteran, and which is a shame. But it was, I mean, obviously the false allegation was far more damaging, and it was false, and it was proven to be the case. But he also he knows a guy who does a radio show, so he might have us on. That's why I brought that up. So hopefully it may be nice, but I think it would be about the false allegations in the military more than anything else.
Yeah, we probably have to keep it to that. Maybe a little bit of extra.
So I was going to bring up something else about what we're talking about. Oh, yeah, right. So what if, okay, what do we do about this? Like, what are some ways we can address it? Because you were right about, you called it hedonistic. We're like living in a time of, essentially a tremendous amount of comfort, abundance. It's resource plentiful. Again, all of this we could lose it very, very quickly if we aren't careful. And so we have this thing where people are separated from the means by which they're able to live the way they do, and they take it for granted. And so they could end up squandering it very quickly. Okay. And that's kind of what we're looking at, like, coming up, honestly. Like, women are willing to sink the country because Cat Turd made a joke on the internet, or he said something that he couldn't actually, make good on, which is repeal the 19th. And women all over the political spectrum are like up in arms, and they're like, we'll vote for, we'll vote for the administration that's going to destroy everything if you don't treat us with respect. And so what that reads to me is you don't know how bad it could get. Like, you just said, there was a tweet. Do you remember the tweet I shared with you? Let me see if I can find it. I want to put it on the screen. Where a woman said, should we all vote to take men's rights away? Do you remember that? Not that men have a lot of rights to begin with, but I want to get it really quick and put it on the screen so you guys can see it. Here we go. I'm going to put it on the screen, and then I'm going to read it to you all.
Essentially what that means is if men have no rights and they're the ones who are responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of society functionally.
Here it is.
I I just walked through the town like yesterday. There were two men on working the electricity. There was another crew of men building a building. I mean, it is impossible to deny the fact that men are primarily responsible for constructing and maintaining our society and the infrastructure. So what they're saying is, let's get rid of the rights of the people who are primarily invested in maintaining everything. Why would they continue to maintain everything unless you have the ability to force them? Well, if we go back to a system based on force, I think modern women will probably not like the result. All right, because a system based by force is going to have to require men to use the force, right? And what happens when those men realize that they can use force for their own benefit? I mean, you've already created a society in which men are expected to do things not to their own benefit. At some point, these guys are going to realize that they're doing everything. What keeps them maintaining it? Like, what keeps them continuing to do this stuff when they don't have rights? Do they have compensation? Like, in order to have the benefit of money, you'd actually have to have an economy that makes stuff. And once you get into basically a slave, and you know what? Screw all of the logistics of that. That woman is talking about slavery, not just not having the vote, literally making men slaves. Like, this is not comparable to saying if you don't actually have skin in the game, you shouldn't have a vote, right? That's not comparable. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I just these are not two comparable things. And even more, just acknowledging the fact that history, because it had these demands on women or men, and it did not have these demands on men. I mean, let's look at the vote and let's look at the use of force throughout history. Throughout history, the government was just basically a utility. That's it. It was like the electrical company or the water company. It was just the first utility. And the first utility is, we can keep this area relatively safe for non-military activities. That's the first utility. The very first. Because if you don't have the ability to keep an area safe, nobody's getting water, nobody's planting, nobody's weaving, nobody is threshing, nobody's doing anything except running. So the first utility is keeping the area safe. Why did men, and that's the first government, right? Keeping the area safe. That's it. It's just the first government is just the utility of defense. Why did men have a say in that? Because they were the ones who had to defend it. Like, it's why do the people who work for the sewer system have a say in how the sewer is run? I mean, why do people who, you know, the electricians and the working for the electricity company, why do they have a say in how electricity is delivered? You know, the people who build the roads, why do they have a say in how the roads are built? Are you fucking kidding me? Because they're the ones doing the work. Men had a say because they were the ones doing the work. Full stop. And then gradually government started to talk about, hey, we got this land that's sort of safe from outsiders, but there are insiders who are a bit of a problem. Maybe we should, you know, bring the men together in posses and sort of, you know, tell those guys to take a hike, right? That's like the first law and order. It's probably the next thing, the next utility. Let's keep the place inside safe from people who are bad actors within it, right? And again, that's men's labor. Why did men have a say over it? Because it was their labor, right? Okay. And as we go through, that's what government was. And why did men have the majority say in it? Because it was their labor. The utility that government provided was directly a result of men's labor. So literally, men are doing the work and deciding how the work gets done. And women looked at that and said, I can't believe how much they're oppressing us. Are you? It infuriates me that this was ever framed as women's oppression, ever. I mean, in 100 years, are they going to look back at like the power company and be like, well, women didn't get a vote in the power company. They must have been oppressed. Yeah, they weren't doing the work.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Well, no, it's okay. So, I mean, that's basically like everything I wanted to like bring forward about this. I don't know. So let's recap really quick, okay? So first thing I looked at was the POV meme, and I was asking myself, why is it women don't get it? And there's something deeper at play. Are women naturally solipsistic, which is not the same as narcissistic, although they can be that as well. But so like think about it like this too, okay? Because I'm like bringing in all these other things that I've watched. So Home Math talks about, if you have never seen Home Math, you should totally watch it. How women will not see a large chunk of the male population at all. That's why when feminists talk about how dangerous they think men are, and I've debated with feminist women on when I was going to college about it, and they would say, I feel really unsafe at night or whatever, and I'd say, well, how many men do you come across in your day-to-day life? How many men? How many thousands and thousands of men? And it didn't compute because she didn't see those men as men. If they weren't doing anything with her and they were just going about their business, they didn't exist. And when it comes to men that they, are looking at in terms of dating material, the majority of men don't exist either. And so I think that on some level, a solipsistic attitude may have been a part of a woman's evolution. Like there's some logic behind it. Women want to make sure that their offspring survives, so they're going to be really selective on who they, are going to want to mate with. But then that could become a thing over time where it's not just the men they want to mate with, but just like whether or not they see men at all as men. And so this POV thing got me thinking about that. And then I thought, well, feminists are always, and I'm not talking about the academic feminists like in the the inner school that know that this has nothing to do with women at all, and that they're just using it to like keep their job and make their money and sell their books and remain in tenure and all that. I'm talking about the regular women that think that they're feminists because they think that feminism is just equality and that they need it, because that's the thing too. Like women, that claim to be conservative, right wing, whatever. They all have a line. I've talked about it. Like almost all women, they have a line that they will not cross when it comes to feminism because they feel it's like a security blanket. They have to have it. They have to hold on to it because if they don't and that line is crossed, they're going to lose all their rights. So they believe on a fundamental level that men are waiting for the opportunity to do it. It just depends on where the line is at. And they'll say it about, their own men. They'll say it about foreign men, whatever it is. Okay. And because if they think that something is coming dangerously close to that line, which by the way it's not defined very well, it's just based on their feelings, then they will just become full-blown feminists. Sydney Watson did it. Lauren Southern did it. Lauren Chen will probably do it. She's like more base than they are, but she's got a line. I promise you, she's got a line. And when it looks like it's going to be crossed, she's going to become just like Mona Olathaway or Lori Penny, if you want like a throwback, right? So because of that, a degree of solipsism is perhaps something that these women think is a good tactic to fall on. So the POV thing kind of like got me thinking about that. Then I looked at the Tocqueville Paradox. So it's like, well, why would this happen? Like men have been trying to like figure out essentially how to get women to stop whining and stop nagging them. And we've built all of this. Probably the baseline of it is women's nagging and then men's productivity. It gave us modern civilization. And women are like, well, all of those things have been solved. But I got to find something new to nag about. So they're going to nag about something else. And men haven't been able to say, you know what? No, we're not doing that. they're still like, well, how do we figure? We got to get them to. Well, they're not comfortable enough. We have to work harder, right? So the Tocqueville Paradox could be where this is coming from, which is why I brought it up. And then we got just to sort of cap it off, we have this video of women saying how much do they expect their man to make, and that's how you know how divorced. What the gap is between men's reality, where they think, well, shit, if I make 40 grand a year, I could probably find a decent woman because I'll be able to afford, and they have a list. They're like, oh, I should have a car that's maybe less than 10 years old. I have a small place to myself, right now, maybe over time, I'll be able to buy a house, not getting into what is going on with the housing market, but I'm just saying this is what the logic is. Men are like, well, if I have this much education, this kind of job, and this car, maybe I can go on some dates. And women are like, what their expectation is completely on another planet. And it's probably because of influencers like Manifestel, which are far more common than you think. And that's why I mentioned that other podcast called Call Her Daddy, which is all about essentially being a modern woman. And I think that what it says to me is there's a massive gap in expectations for a life of any kind between men and women, and they're not able to meet in the middle, or not that there is a middle, but to understand each other's position. And there's a number of reasons for that, which I'm sure Allison will go into. But this is the problem we find ourselves. And one of the things that I think is also a big part of that is this, at least in part, a lack of grace for men's efforts and a lack of gratitude for everything that we have. And this is something, and this is also probably a product of a lack of humility, where people can say, you know what, I'm a piece of shit, I don't deserve anything, I'm really glad that I have this apartment and I have a computer and I have a phone and I have a wife, that likes me half the time at least, or a husband, whatever it is, a boyfriend. So yeah, I mean, that's why I put this together, and those are my thoughts on that. Allison?
Okay, I got stuck in my tabs. Yeah. I would say those are some interesting things to bring together into a cohesive whole. I'm still sort of shaking my head at Michelle Baker. Okay, fine, you do everything then. You want all ultimate say, then you do it.
Well, that's funny, the Michelle Baker thing. Let me share this again for you guys so you guys can see it, because I think that it is interesting. Because let me read this and I'll explain why I think this is in line with what I've been trying to bring up. So Michelle Baker says, hey, women, we're the majority. Should we eliminate men's voting rights? Should we force them to get vasectomies? Should we make sure they get paid less than women for the same work? Should we imprison them for causing unwanted pregnancies? That's turning the tables. And what's funny about that is that Michelle Baker doesn't seem to understand that in order for her to do any of those things, she has to use men. So it's like they think that the system that exists, the systems that we have put in place, systems like the political structure, the government, the police force, the fire department, the military, democracy, a republic, whatever it is, these things somehow exist independent of the people that occupy them. So she's like, well, if we just vote to take away all of men's rights, then I'm sure we'll get them. And it's like, yeah, but you're asking men to do that to men. And while there are plenty of men who would throw men under the bus, I don't think they realize that the only way they could do that is to get men to do it, because it's like they don't think the system is composed of men. They think it's just something that they can just pull the levers on, like one of those Dr. Wily final bosses from Mega Man, and shit just happens. And I think it's funny because it shows you what I mean when I'm saying they're so divorced from reality. They think that these systems that they rely on, they think it's in the back. They think this stuff is just here. Like they don't know that in the blink of an eye, you could be without electricity, without running water, without the internet, without all of these, comforts and amenities, and that you'd actually have to survive on your own. And it would just become like, the episode of Survivor where you had like the women team and the men's team, and the men team were like partying, have a good time, catching fish, building huts together, and the women are crying and they're wet in the rain because they don't realize that these systems don't exist without cooperation, and men are boss at cooperation. So you need them. You just can't pretend like you don't. So, but that's POV, isn't it? Oh, you're muted or something. Can't hear you.
Yeah, I know. I was just muted. Yeah, no, this is it's POV. I just, like I said, I'm astounded by Michelle, and I'm even more astounded by Alex. We don't have access to first person. Are you fucking like, how do you top that? How do you literally how do you have any analysis that we should make a monument to that woman's tweet and be like, okay, let's put in a time capsule and for the future. Why did Western civilization fail? Well, let us look at Alex's tweet. I don't know if you have it up there. Let's look at what Alex has to say about women not having access to first person point of view. We just don't have access to it. You live it. We should put this on a monument somewhere and be like, okay, you're probably wondering how our civilization collapsed. This tweet is why. This woman thought she was defending women. Women don't, Alex Kachuta, women don't understand point of view because they don't watch as much porn or play first-person shooters. It's not an IQ test. They just don't get to see it in the categories bar every day. Alex. What do you think these things that you see from are? And the thing behind it that interprets, what do you think this whole system that you exist within is for? It's not for selfies. It is for the manufacture of the first person point of view into which you live or you experience life every day. You don't need to see it in your categories. You should be living it. The fact that you're not, and you consider that a defense for why women are ignorant of first person, is terrible. It's like you just see a little crack in your wall, right? And you just go to it, and then the more you look into it, the bigger it gets. It's like some kind of crack into some kind of other dimension. The more I look at the tweet, the more I feel like my reason and logic is unraveling. Like Alex's tweet is like some kind of black body of pure and utter solipsistic insanity that if you stare at it too long, it probably should have like a warning. Hey, you might lose your mind. You stare at this too long. How have you gone through puberty and not realized you live in first person?
Yep. So I got a Rumble rant I want to read. Okay. Rumble rant from NobaFan21. He says, for how much money is this? $1. I don't know why, but the chat thing cuts it off sometimes. And he says, I saw a video yesterday from Dev, Short Fat Otaku, where he talks about why women are having fewer kids, and he seems to imply the government and the economy play a bigger role than women's choices. Well, that sounds like something a statist would say. It's like the government is only able to affect your choices if they show up at your house with a gun. And there are incentives, like in the States. I don't know about Canada, because I know that's where he's from. In the States, women are incentivized to have kids without a man, which may then further incentivize them to choose to not to have kids at all because maybe they're having a hard time finding a man. But they can't make you. You still have a choice. Like, we can't pretend like women don't make choices, just like we can't pretend like men don't make choices. At least, to the degree that they can. But thank you for the $1. And then he gives another $1 and says, if you're interested in that video, I can make a summary and list of time codes when I get free time. Sure, go ahead. I'll check it out.
All right. I don't know. I think that tweet is terrifying and hilarious and an existential nightmare.
Well, I don't want to. We're obviously not going to get into this now because I have to find the research on it. But I have heard that the average IQ of Western women is going down, and I don't know if it's because of the brain. What do they call it? Brain rot on the internet. But when you look at the most popular podcast for women versus the most popular podcast for men, or the most popular podcast that men watch and the most popular podcast that women watch or listen to. It makes you wonder. Really makes you think.
Okay. I wanted to say one thing about your whole social media is Call of Duty for women.
Yeah.
We've really got to do something because I would not put a young girl into that before she has developed a sense of her first person self.
Yeah, right. Yes. Wow. Yeah, like maybe a young girl should play some Call of Duty so she knows what POV is before she goes on social media.
Okay, all right. So I want you guys send in your super chats, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a tip and tell us what you think about this content. I think that Brian is on to something. His street thinking. I don't know.
It's my gut. I'm from the streets. I get around. I've been around, I think is the line. I've been around.
Yeah, so I think his gut is on to something. So and tell us about that. Send us a message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. I won't encroach on your territory about the comments there, Brian, but send us a message to Feed the Badger and support the show. feedthebadger.com/support if you want to hear more of these insights into women not understanding point of view. And astoundingly, in the article of women not understanding point of view, the Know Your Meme attempts to defend women by quoting a woman who apparently doesn't understand that she lives in first person.
Yeah, well, that's all I want. That's all I have the strength for. I think I definitely want to check out the Call Her Daddy podcast, and then because that's the most popular for women, and then we'll look at maybe some of the Tucker Carlson podcast or the Joe Rogan, because that's the most popular for men. And when you look at I think it is kind of connected to what we're saying, because when you look at what women are watching online, like, or listening to in terms of podcasts, it gives you a sense of the things they're interested in, but it also gives you a sense of the scope of the world as they see it. And then when you look at what men are, so like it literally is still that model of the patriarchy and gynocentrism that Mike made in that one video that he made years ago. Do you remember that video he made where he had like a small circle that represented gynocentrism? Yeah, that was a
really good way of representing those.
Yes. And I think that's what that, even in this, in terms of like what podcasts are people listening to, if you look at the scale of, or the depth of what women are listening to, and I don't include Lindsay in this, because Lindsay and I tried to listen to one episode, a clip from an episode. It was like 9 minutes, and we got like 3 minutes in, and she was like, "I can't do this. Like, it's too awful. It's too gross. It actually gross her out." The women's podcast I'm talking about, and then you look at the scale at which things are happening, that like of the conversation that men are interested in, and it's like night and day. So we'll check it out sometime.
Yeah, it's like what I don't understand when conservatives say weak men create weak or bad times. I'm like, men are still doing what men do, 100%. You know, and even in the Ukraine, we see that men are still defending their territory too. So men are still doing their jobs. There's no weak men. There just is absolutely no reason to do it anymore. Well, okay. It'd be nice to keep this society. I think it's cool. You know, we can be seen from space for the first time in human history. That's cool. That's nice. You know, keep it. Let's try to find some kind of way of getting men and women back together again. And that's a good thing to aim for, don't you think? And I think part of it is that we have to, I don't know, like, is it possible to have a relationship with a woman who does not understand first person, who literally doesn't realize that she lives in it, so she doesn't need to have it in her categories to understand it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I know they exist. I know they exist. They're
Yeah.
out there.
yeah, they're
I
out
found
there.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So once again, feedthebadger.com/support to support the show. I will go check to see if anybody has slipped something through. Maybe
We get
we'll
it
do
in under the buzzer. Actually, it is 31 days in August. I should have known that because September only has 30. So yeah,
Yes.
we got like
Yeah,
tomorrow
it's got
is the last
31.
day.
Yeah, tomorrow's the last day. So please do help us out by supporting the show, feedthebadger.com/support. And that's very much appreciated. And I'll probably be announcing the meetup fundraiser shortly. I know lots of fundraisers, but hopefully we'll be able to do something in person this year. So look forward to that.
Yep. Crossing my fingers that we'll be able to
Most
cross
likely.
the border without any issues.
Oh, good Lord.
I imagine it'll be okay, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
we'll
try
see.
and cross all of my T's and dot all of my lowercase J's.
All right. So once again, feedthebadger.com/support. And I'm handing it back to Brian.
Okay, so if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. I have links to as much of that stuff as everything that mostly everything that I talked about. Some things I kind of like added on, so they're not in there, but you should look them up and you know, we'll have time codes in the stream after tomorrow, so you can look up the section that you want to watch or listen to. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we'll talk to you all in the next video. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.